Holy shit, next season of Game of Thrones is going to be awesome. Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Game of Thrones Season 4, Episode 10, the season finale, The Children. And wow, this episode just wow. Because, like, I didn't know what to think of this episode, because I really like last week's, but here's what happened last year, last season. The previous season, the finale was, the ninth episode was really great, like, probably the best episode of the show was Reigns of Castamere, but then last year's finale sucked. It was terrible. I hated last year's finale, because I just thought it was, like, really, really boring, and that was not the case for this episode at all. In fact, this episode was bigger than last week. I know that's hard to believe. This episode was bigger. It really was. It was bigger than last week, and I was surprised with how big this episode really, really was. I mean, it was huge. There was so much that happened in this episode, and a lot of really interesting things to talk about for next season that I'm really looking forward to. And, there were some really sad moments. This episode was also surprisingly very sad. I was not expecting it to be as sad as it was, and there were some really sad moments in this episode. Some really big things as well, which I really want to talk about. So let's get to this episode. We also had, two big deaths, which I'll get to, but let's get to, this episode. So basically, we saw Jon Snow. You remember how Jon Snow went into that wall last week? He went inside the wall last week, where he was going. Well, we got to see what's inside that wall. He's heading out into the wildlands, and crows are scavenging the corpse of dead giants, and there's an eerie stillness washing over the land. And, you get to see basically everyone that died in combat last week. I thought that was a pretty interesting thing, because we got to see everybody that died, so that I thought that was definitely an interesting moment, that we got to see, like, everybody that died. That was definitely really interesting. So yeah, that was interesting, as I said. And basically what we got to see was, he heads out. He heads out into the forest, and he eventually finds the wildlings there. Yeah, he finds the wildlings. And Mance Rayder comes out of his tent, and Jon says that he's coming to negotiate. And the conversation starts out surprisingly cordial. It seems they're surprisingly cordial at first. Jon tells Mance that Ygritte is dead, though it was not by his hand. You can see that Jon is really upset about Ygritte. The whole episode, there's a lot of references to, when we get to Jon, there's a lot of references with Ygritte. It's very sad, but I like that they did that, because it's kind of like they're not just going to let this one death happen and then everything else, they're not just going to let one death happen, and I like that they did that with this episode. That was definitely very well done. Basically, Mance says that he and his people aren't there to conquer, they merely want safety from the impending winter, because winter is coming. And of course, when winter is coming, bigger threats occur. So, that's a pretty big deal that winter's coming, of course. Mance says that if he gives them access to the tunnels to allow them to travel to safety behind the wall, they won't unleash any more attacks on Castle Black. But then we see a giant army parade through the forest, and Mance wonders if it's the Night's Watch, but Jon admits that they don't have enough manpower for an attack on the scale. The army wipes out a good deal of the wildlings. I mean, it is a huge attack. I mean, this just came out of nowhere, and this was actually bigger than last week's big fight. I mean, I'm watching and I'm like, you know what? This is bigger than last week. I mean, last week's episode was basically just combat, but this episode was like, this was bigger than that, believe it or not. I was surprised by actually how big this was. I didn't expect it to be as big as it was, and it really was quite big, which I liked. Basically we see that there's like this huge attack, the army wipes out a good deal of the wildlings, and eventually it's revealed that Stannis is behind the attack. So Stannis approaches Mance and wants him to kneel, but Mance says that they do not kneel, not for anyone, and Jon tells Stannis that he is Ned Stark's son, and convinces him to let Mance live, and he will be taken as a prisoner. So that was very interesting when we found there was Stannis. So now we kind of have this Stannis-Jon conflict now. It's going to be very interesting to see where that goes next season. Then we get a very big scene. We see Cersei. And Cersei, of course, I have not liked her all season long. I have hated her character. I've wanted her to die this season. I want her to die in this episode because, she was the one who she's just an idiot, basically, and she's even stupider in this episode because she is trying to save her champion. Of course, he was poisoned with manticore venom when he was sliced by Oberon's weapon, even though he killed Oberon and stomped on his head, he still is, wounded, so... A doctor says he might be able to help him with alternate methods, though he warns Cersei that it could change him, and Cersei tells the physician to do all he can, just save him. Now here's the thing, why does Cersei care? Why does she care so much if he lives? Like, seriously, the only reason that he was sent there was I thought the only reason she cared was because of the combat. Now that fight is over, so why does she care if he lives? It just doesn't make sense to me that she cares that he lives, because she really shouldn't give a shit that he lives. Like, if I was Cersei, I wouldn't give two shits if he lives. I really would not. So I don't know why she cares that he lives. I just find that stupid. So, Cersei, so then we see that Cersei talks with Tywin. Very, very big moment here. And she's saying how she doesn't want to marry Loras Tyrell. And she says that she will not be shipped off. And she gets very, very mad. And then guess what happens? I was so surprised this. My mouth literally dropped at this part. She finally reveals to Tywin that all the rumors are true. She and Jaime are together. She tells him that his legacy is all a lie. That is huge now, because now Tywin knows about Cersei and Jaime. So it was so that was really, really interesting when we found that out. I did not expect her to tell anyone about that. And when she told him, I was very surprised that she told him. I didn't expect her to tell anyone, and that was just really, really big. That was just like a wow moment. That was very, very well done. I thought they did a really great job with that. I really enjoyed that scene overall, because then what happens because of what happens in the next scene. Basically, she goes to see Jaime, and she says that a person can choose family. She says that she chooses him, not Tywin Lannister, and that she will stand her ground in King's Landing while by her son, King Tommen. But then guess what happens after that? They then proceed to have sex. Yes, she then has sex with Jaime. So now they are back, and he really doesn't want this to happen. But, she finally does give in to her, which is huge, because I didn't see the first season, but I guess, I was talking to my friend Kane LaPlante, of course, and he told me the first time that they had them have sex, Arya was in danger. So now someone's going to be in danger now, and that's obviously not going to be a big thing, good thing. So that was very interesting that now they have brought the romance back. I did not expect that to happen, but that was really big, because it really shows where they've been from the first episode of the season to now. In the first episode, Cersei wanted nothing to do with him, while Jaime wanted to be with her, and now Jaime doesn't want anything to do with her, while Cersei wants to be with him. So I found that very interesting. So then we see Daenerys, and Daenerys very, very big in this episode. I'm very interested in seeing where this is going to go. So Daenerys talks with a previous slave, and he's very, very old, and asks her to allow him to be bought again. And she does not like this idea, but eventually she says that she'll allow a contract to be drafted that will grant him his wish. So another man comes up to talk with Daenerys, and he presents her an armful of bones, of bones of his daughter, and his child was charred to a crisp by one of her dragons. So, Drogon, who cannot be found at the moment, and she feels very guilty one of her dragons did such a thing. So she has a very difficult decision to make. What does she want to do to her dragons? It's a very big decision. Unfortunately, her dragons are growing up and they're growing fiercer, so she does not know how to deal with what they're doing, because not only is she worried that they're going to kill someone else, she's worried about herself, because she's worried about her safety, of course, as well. So she ultimately decides to lock them up in a dungeon, which is really sad, because she spent all these time with the dragons. They think of her as their mother, and it's really, really sad, honestly. I just thought that was really sad. So that was definitely one of the saddest moments of the episode. But then we get probably to the saddest moment of the episode, because back on the wall, they're burying the bodies of the fallen, and Jon Snow is taking Ygritte's body beyond the wall to burn her body, and he really does not want to do it, because you see that he really did care about her, as we knew from last week. So, in a very touching moment, he sets the wood on fire, walks away, and then he begins to cry. He really does not want to do it, but he knows he has to, so he burns her body. So, that was a really sad moment. That was the last one we saw of Jon Snow in the episode, but it was really, really big, and it was really sad, too. Then we see Bran and his party arrive at the glorious tree from their visions, and they approach it. But as they make their way across the snow to the tree, demon skeletons pop out of the earth, and Jojen, unfortunately, is stabbed to death. And I thought that Bran was going to die here, because it looked like they said they were killing off a major character in this episode. I thought it was going to be Bran, but it wasn't. It was Jojen. So now that Jojen's gone, we see this small girl out of nowhere, and you're just like, who the fuck is that? And she saves him by throwing some magic fire at the demon skeletons, and they make it to the tree where the dark power isn't effective. Now, Bran asks the girl who she is, and she says that the first men called them the Children, and that's why this episode is called The Children, but she admits that they were born long before them and are actually much older. Now, she leads them further into the space beneath the tree. So the man who's been controlling the third-eyed raven says that he has been watching them all their lives. The old man who's entangled in the trees says that Jojen knew all along what he had coming to him, but that he left on the journey anyway to help Bran recover what he's lost. Bran thinks the old man will help him walk away, and the man says, you'll never walk alone, but you will fly. So that is really big, because this is probably going to be where Bran is going to be now. He's going to be with this family now, so it's going to be very interesting to see how he survives here, because it's really interesting now. Then we see a huge scene, probably one of the hugest scenes of the episode. Brienne walks in a furious state, wondering where their horses have gone. She doesn't know where their horses have gone. She's like, Pod, what did you do with the horses? And guess who Brienne runs into? She runs into Arya. And after many moments, Brienne realizes that Arya's true identity and tells her that she swore to her mother that she'd protect her, which is really big because, Arya, of course, is pretending to be a boy. Everyone thinks she's a boy. The Hound knows, the Hound knows that, I think, but, she finds out that she's Arya, so she tells her, so Brienne really wants to protect her, but the Hound comes in, he really isn't having this, he's saying, no, I'm better for her, no, I'm better for her, and then they engage in this huge battle, and this was really awesome. We didn't know what was going to happen. I thought the Hound was going to end up taking out Brienne, because I just thought that's where they were going with this, that, Brienne was going to die, and that's not what happened, though, because Brienne, when she bashes the Hound's face in, and he goes rolling down the cliff. So Arya evades Brienne and Pod. She's like, Brienne's like, Arya, where are you? And we find out that she actually has gone to find the Hound, who's laying on his deathbed at the bottom of the cliff. Now, the Hound is dying and encourages Arya to travel alongside Brienne, as he thinks she won't last a day out there. And Arya says, I'll last longer than you. Basically, he's very concerned about her safety, and he thinks that, the only way for her to live is to go with Brienne. He's like, you have to go with them, you have to go with him. And then he tells her to kill him. Of course, he's like, you have to kill me, you have to kill me, it's not safe out there. If you go with them, you can be safe. So the Hound begs Arya to end him, but she doesn't. She takes his gold and walks away. So the question is, where did she go? We find out a little bit later in the episode, which I'll get to. But then we see the big moment, which is Tyrion and Jaime. Very, very big here. Very sad, but very big. So Jaime sneaks into the dungeon to break Tyrion out of jail, and Jaime says that Lord Varys is helping him, and Tyrion thanks Jaime for saving his life. It's very sad, though, of course, because, Jaime is, it's sad, because the big thing is, the big thing with Jaime, of course, that Jaime is the one that's protected Tyrion all this time. So Tyrion's saying, thank you for helping me out. I'm very happy you helped me out. So Tyrion's on his way out, and he stops by Shay's room. I didn't know what was going to happen here. Honestly, I was just like, kill her, kill her, kill her, because Shay is a crazy bitch. She is the person that got him into this. She lied at the, she lied at the trial, so, people believed her. So to clear that up, he strangles her to death, so she's dead. So, now Shay is dead, and I was very surprised that Tyrion actually killed her. Tyrion, at this point, goes on, a killing spree. Because he then continues sneaking through the corridors, and then he sees Tywin. And this is very, very big here, and Tywin crosses his path, and Tyrion, at this point, has a crossbow. And Tyrion wonders why he sends him to death, even when he knew he didn't poison Joffrey. And of course, Tywin's saying to kill him and everything. And at first, Tyrion just shoots him, but then he actually does kill him. So Tyrion killed Tywin, and that's really big. And then Varys helped Tyrion escape. So that was really big, because now Tyrion is free. And I was very surprised that happened overall. So yeah, Tywin is dead now. Shay is dead, and I was very surprised that Tywin's dead, because now Tywin's dead. So that's going to be a huge thing, because it's Tywin. Tywin is dead, and, the big thing is, remember how Stannis said if Tywin dies, he will take over? Stannis can take over now, so that's even big now, because I knew Tywin was going to die, because I forgot about that conversation that Stannis had with Davos when he said, if something bad happens to Tywin, I'm going to take over. and now Stannis can take over, and it's going to get really interesting next season, so I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen next. Then we see the very end of the episode, we see where Arya went. She's gone to find a horse, and she's now on her own. She's solo, and she wants to do this alone. And she finds a ship crew, and she wants to sail with them, and at first the captain is wary of letting her go alone. They're sailing to Bravos, and she presents to the captain the iron coin she was given, and it says Valor Morgulis, and he welcomes her on board. Now guess where she tells him she wants to go. She wants to go to the Wall. And that's how it ends, which is huge, because the Wall is where Jon Snow is, so next season is going to be awesome, because now we have the Stark family reunion is coming. She's going to meet up with Jon Snow. She's going to meet up with Jon Snow and everyone there, so that's going to be very interesting to watch, and I think every character was in this episode except for Sansa. The only storyline we did not see in this episode was Sansa, which I find kind of interesting we didn't see that in this episode. I don't know why we didn't see that Sansa storyline in this episode, but overall, this episode was amazing. I love this episode. I thought it was a fantastic episode. By far, hands down, best episode of the season. Just, wow, such a great episode. I absolutely love this episode, and I can't wait for next season. I gotta say, these last 2 episodes really improved the season. Yes, this season has been the weakest. I'll say that right now. This season has been the weakest, but it still was an amazing season, and I loved it. There's a lot of things I want to talk about now, though. So, of course, as I said, now that Tywin is dead, Stannis can now take over, because Stannis wanted to do that, so now he can. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all works out. If he does decide to take over, we'll have to see what happens there. As far as Tyrion, as far as Tyrion goes, I don't know where he's going out. All we know is that Lord Varys helped him escape, so I don't know what's going to happen there. Cersei and Jaime are starting their affair again. Where do you guys think that's going to go? I'm very interested in seeing that, where that's going to go. And of course, Arya is now going to meet up with Jon Snow. So obviously, wherever she's now going to the Wall where she'll meet up with Jon Snow. She doesn't even know Jon Snow is there. She just wants to go to the Wall. So that's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. But let me know what you guys saw of this episode. Overall, as I said, I love this episode. What is going to happen now with Arya? Do you think she will meet up with Jon Snow? I'm pretty sure she will. I feel like next season is going to be Stark's family reunion. I just know it will. Now that Tywin is dead, will Stannis be able to take over? I think he will take over. Where is Tyrion going next? I don't know. We'll have to see. Jaime and Cersei, now that they've started their affair again, will they cause something bad to happen? I don't really know. And will Cersei actually risk her own son's life, to protect herself? Do you think she'd actually sacrifice Tommen's life? She better not kill Tommen, because I really am enjoying Tommen's character. That was the only thing we didn't see. We didn't see Tommen and Marjorie either, which I would have wanted to see a little bit more of them. We didn't see that in this episode, unfortunately. I wish we would have, though. And then as far as, what else is there to talk about? Brienne. Where is Brienne and Pod going? Brienne and Pod obviously wants to keep Arya safe. They're going to look for Arya. Do you think they will eventually find Arya? We'll have to see. As far as the Hound goes, what's going to happen with the Hound? He's not dead, so I don't know what's going to happen with the Hound. Well, I guess we'll just have to see. Jon Snow, of course, very, very sad with your grit. I gotta commend everyone, though, tonight, because tonight's episode was surprisingly very emotional. I didn't expect it to be as emotional as it was, and it really was very, very emotional. But overall, I love this episode. Fantastic episode. Best episode of the season. I love this episode. I actually liked it probably 10 times more than last week's. Also, this was the longest episode in the entire show. It was like 66 minutes long, and honestly, I thought that was fantastic, because there's certain plot lines that haven't gotten enough depth to them, and I feel like tonight we got a lot of depth to a lot of plots. There were some very long scenes in this episode, and they took advantage of that long runtime. They took advantage of that very long runtime because of this episode. So that's in my review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for, I think it's going to be either a classic my review or my review for Penny Dreadful. It'll be one of those two. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.